The larger and the more complex a conspiracy gets, the more people are involved, the harder it is to hide it. The Sith's audacious plan to hide inhibitor chips in the brains of every clone trooper that can be triggered to kill the Jedi, well, that's perhaps one of the craziest conspiracies in galactic history, and also one of the best kept secrets as well. Today we'll be taking a look at the handful of individuals who actually knew about these inhibitor chips and what they were capable of before Order 66. So if you didn't think the Clone Wars TV show was deep enough because, it's an animated TV show made for kids, I recommend you check out the book Stories of Light and Dark. In it, a bunch of authors write short stories based on various Clone Wars episodes. These short stories are designed to delve deeper into the individual TV episodes and give us a bit more background information about what's going on and tell us what exactly is going on in the heads of the characters. Now, the first chapter of the book is titled Sharing the Same Face, and it's actually based on the first episode of the Clone Wars titled Ambush. In it, Yoda and a small team of clones are dropped on the moon of Rugosa in an effort to convince the Toydarians to allow the Republic to build a military base on their territory. It actually reminds me of this deal America's cut with Marcos in the Philippines recently to open up more military bases on their island chain. Now, unfortunately, the Separatists get wind of this meeting and send their own representative, Asajj Ventress, with a small task force to ambush the Jedi. Although initially overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of the Separatist attack, Yoda manages to regroup a small team and rally them. But what the short story reveals is that Yoda has a Force vision while he's resting in between fights. You see, Yoda was disturbed by the clones and how quickly the galaxy and even the Jedi were willing to accept their sacrifice. But what worried him even more was how quickly the clones would follow orders, even if it was orders that they personally were against. They were just simply too obedient. I think watching Mace Windu lead thousands of clones to their death during the initial Battle of Geonosis really shocked Yoda. There was just something inhuman about these human clones. Yoda's Force vision featured a vast dark presence that was coming very quickly for the Jedi, and it was somehow connected to the clone army. Given the obedience and lack of individuality of these clones, it basically made them the perfect weapon to be used by malicious people. And so yeah, Yoda had suspicions about the clones from very early on. But as Yoda began to serve alongside these clones, he also began to see their humanity and compassion. It wasn't that these clones were just willing to follow orders and die for nothing. They were doing this because they wanted to protect the Republic, they wanted to protect each other, and even their Jedi commanders, who they really didn't know that much by this time.
With respect, General, maybe you should go on. Let us slow him down.
The same qualities that make the clones a fan favorite are probably what won over Yoda, but more importantly, Yoda had also seen what happened to other Jedi who pursued Force visions and prophecies. It usually did not end up well, which is ironic because in this case, Yoda's Force prophecy was 100% legit. Now, Dooku, one of his own Padawan, had been infatuated by a prophecy that spoke of the upcoming suffering and chaos that the Clone Wars would bring upon the galaxy. This was a contributing factor to Dooku's fall to the dark side. He wanted power to fight off the chaos and darkness that was coming. And so Yoda chooses to put aside this Force vision and instead he focuses on the innate goodness within all of these clones. Now, later on in the last year of the Clone Wars, Yoda would venture to the planet of Dagobah and enter the famous cave that Luke would one day enter. Inside, Yoda has a vision of the future. It shows the Jedi clearly charging a line of clone troopers, followed by Darth Sidious slaughtering a bunch of Jedi Masters in his office. At this point, Yoda would have been very confused. Most Jedi during this time period were blinded by the dark side of the Force. They didn't have a real good connection to the cosmic Force because of Sidious's presence. And I think Yoda, because he didn't know what exactly was going on, kind of went back to this mentality, let's not interpret these prophecies. I have way too much stuff going on right now. And even if Yoda did decide to act upon these visions, I think it was already too late to save the Jedi. They were completely trapped by their duty within the Grand Army of the Republic. Before we continue though, a quick word from our sponsor for today's video, ownersaber.com. Did you know that ownersaber.com doesn't just carry lightsabers, they also have a growing list of accessories which you can now purchase in a bundle. So guys, I have here the lightsaber scabbard and it works with most of the standard lightsabers. It doesn't work with the dark saber, obviously. You can buy the scabbard in a bundle with great savings with either the Tempest or Cal Kestis' lightsaber. One of the cool parts about this scabbard is you can actually see the blade through these cutouts here. This is actually Arabesh and it says saber. Now, if you guys want something a bit lower profile, kind of like what the Jedi actually carried during the Clone Wars, you can also check out this belt buckle bundle, which is packaged with the Eclipse lightsaber. Everything is 30% off for the month of May and includes free shipping as well. We'll be linking the website down below if you guys are interested. Thank you for your patience. On to the rest of the video. Now, most of you guys know about the story of Tups and Fives and the inhibitor chip and what happened during the Battle of Ringo Vinda. But I'm going to summarize this quickly here so I can introduce to you guys the next person who knew about Order 66. Now, Tup was a member of the 501st Legion. For some reason, the inhibitor chip inside of his brain malfunctioned, causing him to prematurely execute Order 66 during the Battle of Ringo Vinda. I do want to say for all you guys out there who prematurely execute, I do that all the time. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And, you know, it happened to Tup, who's a badass soldier. So, again, nothing to be ashamed of here. When this occurred, the Kaminoans and Darth Sidious did their best to keep the real reason for Tup's attack a hidden secret. Nala Se tries to blame the incident on a disease or pathogen, but Tup's close friend and squatty Fives quickly uncovers the inhibitor chip inside of Tup's brain and connects it to his erratic behavior. Fives was a bit too brash and aggressive in how he tried to reveal this information to his fellow clones and the Jedi. He was thinking like a soldier and not someone with access to incriminating evidence that could put his life in danger. Ultimately, the Sith would take advantage of his more brash nature, and Fives and his knowledge would be erased. Luckily, before he went, he did manage to talk to Captain Rex and Anakin about a situation, but more importantly, he had a conversation with the 501st Legion's medic, Kix.
I don't have time to explain right now. All I can tell you is that I'm being framed. All of us, even the Jedi, are in grave danger.
Kix and Fives knew each other very well, having served together through incredibly tough campaigns like Umbara together, and so there was a lot of mutual trust already developed between these two individuals. Now, Kix would really be bothered by this run-in he has with Fives in the bathroom, and later on he finds out that Fives would be murdered by the Coruscant Guard, and so he carries out his own investigation, and since he's a medic, he's pretty skilled at doing this. He ends up uncovering the plot of Order 66 all by himself, but unfortunately, his investigation was uncovered by Count Dooku. Dooku would send a separatist squad to kidnap Kix, and they would basically interrogate him and try to figure out if he told anyone else within the Republic about this conspiracy. But on the way to Serrano, which is Count Dooku's homeworld, the separatist cruiser that Kix is on board is ambushed by the Republic. The battle droid in charge of the cruiser had strict orders to avoid capture, and so he would make a blind hyperspace jump, which led to the ship crashing onto the desert planet of Panama Terminal. Now, Kix would survive this crash because he was placed in a cryostasis chamber before the incident. Unfortunately, all of the information he had would expire shortly after when Order 66 occurred. He never had a chance to tell the rest of the galaxy. Kix would be awakened by the Delphidian pirate Sidon Ithano more than 50 years after the Clone Wars ended. Which means he's really the last clone standing, unless some other clones figured out the advanced aging stuff and reversed it. When Tup was under observation by the Kaminoans after his incident, Fives befriended a medical droid known as AZ-3. He would push AZ-3 into doing their own independent tests on Tup because Fives didn't really trust the dolphin-like Kaminoans, because he's smart. The two managed to discover the inhibitor chip in Tup's head, which they first thought was a tumor. AZ-3 would proceed to remove the inhibitor chip from Tup's head and performed a biopsy on the tumor, revealing that it was actually a control chip that could alter the behavior of the host. When Fives reveals this information to the Kaminoans and Jedi Master Shaak Ti, the medical team decide to send the tumor and all the data related to it back to Coruscant. Fives believes that the entire ordeal is over for him and he's preparing himself to return to the front lines when he runs into AZ-3, who tells him the following.
Are you going to be reprogrammed as well?
Nah, Izzy, I'm going back to the front.
That is not what I heard. I heard your mind was going to be wiped, and that you would be reassigned here and placed on sanitation detail. We can still be friends.
Is AZ-3 like low-key genius here, or does he just have absolutely no filter and doesn't understand what he's saying? Because his warning to Fives, whether he meant it or not, pushes him into action. Remember, Fives is an ARC trooper, he's a complete badass, and he manages to escape with AZ-3 in tow, and this at least temporarily delays him from getting his memory wiped. Now, when this story arc ends, AZ-3 is still on Kamino. And I think without Fives there to protect AZ-3, it's very likely that the Kaminoans like Nala Se will get a hold of this tiny little droid and wipe his memory. But we're not 100% sure that happens because we don't have any information about that. Now later on that year we do see AZ-3 again, this time teaming up with Omega. There is a slight possibility that that droid still has the information from the tumor biopsy in his databanks. Droids are often forgotten in Star Wars and a perfect place to hide information in. Leia used R2-D2 and Poe Dameron used BB-8. Whether AZ-3 was able to get this information to the right people is unknown. I feel like this droid kind of lacks initiative, so it's possible he just sat on the information if he still had it. Darth Sidious and most likely Darth Plagueis came up with the idea to use clones to destroy the Jedi. But someone actually had to make the biochips themselves and implant them into the clones' brains without creating too much suspicion. This is where Kaminoan chief scientist Nala Se comes into play. She was one of the foremost experts on cloning in the galaxy, and from what we can tell, she believed that the inhibitor chips were designed to keep rogue Jedi under check. In Legends, Order 66 was just one of 150 different contingency orders that were designed to, keep the Republic in check and balanced. Several of these orders were actually designed to remove the Chancellor from power should he prove to be unable to perform his duties. These 150 orders were designed to allow Order 66 to hide in plain sight. It's actually really smart. Nala Se would design the chips, and Lama Su, the Prime Minister of Kamino, would oversee the productions of the clones. It's very likely that several scientists, droids, and lab assistants working with Nala Se would also have some knowledge of the inhibitor chip's functions, although they might not understand what it's actually for. Heck, even Omega might know about the inhibitor chips because she worked right alongside Nala Se.
Inhibitor chips. The Kaminoans implanted them in the clones to modify their behavior.
Now, because the Empire lied about the true purpose of the inhibitor chips to the Kaminoans, there's not a huge risk that they would, report this information to the Jedi directly. Plus, the Sith more or less hid Kamino from the rest of the galaxy once they started the Clone Trooper contract. All signs of the planet were removed from Galactic Republic star charts. Given the Kaminoans' isolationist culture, it wasn't really hard to hide these individuals from the wider galaxy. Hiding the inhibitor chips in plain sight was actually a really smart move. And that's exactly what Palpatine did. And we find out in the Bad Batch shortly after Order 66 that Tech knew all along that something like this was possible.
It's been well documented that the Kaminoans inhibited the cognitive functions of clones to engineer them to follow orders without question.
Tech, of course, is highly intelligent, and when he says well documented, he probably means he rifled through some really, hard to read technical and engineering papers about the Clone Trooper program. He probably just connected the dots and figured it all out by himself. Unfortunately, he doesn't realize that what's obvious to him is not obvious to almost everyone else. I wish he had told someone. There is speculation that Emperor Palpatine told some members of his inner circle like Masamita or Sly more about his Order 66 plan. It makes sense to have more eyes, more individuals looking out for potential problems like Tup's incident. But we do know for sure that Count Dooku, or Darth Tyrannus, the apprentice of Darth Sidious, was informed about the inhibitor chips. He's actually the individual who convinces the Kaminoans that they were necessary in the first place.
The chip is a safeguard against betrayal from rogue Jedi. Master Sifo-Dyas was the only Jedi who knew of this. But with his passing, we alone know of this secret.
Now, Dooku would claim that no other Jedi aside from Sifo-Dyas knew about these plans, but I think Dooku forgot that, the Force has a lot of different abilities. You see, Sifo-Dyas had this ability to see the future with the Force. It's individuals like him who actually write the prophecies in the first place. And during the Clone Wars, there was a Jedi Padawan named Wheel Malaru, and he had this strange vision where he saw himself getting killed by a blue lightsaber, which of course would be Anakin's lightsaber later on. But at the time, Malaru actually believed that he would fall to the dark side and some Jedi would actually kill him, a Jedi surrounded by clone troopers. But I guess moments before Order 66 occurred and Malaru saw Anakin walk through the front doors of the Jedi Temple, he quickly came to a realization what was about to happen to him. So there you have it, guys. That is my list of individuals who knew about the inhibitor chips, but unfortunately all of these individuals were unable to be whistleblowers and reveal this information to the wider galaxy. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy,